Great, well, let's get started. Good afternoon or morning or evening, depending on where you are. I think we have people for whom any one of those introductions would be appropriate, but my name is Michael Swack, and I'm the director of the Master's Program in Community Development at the Carsey School of Public Policy at the University of New Hampshire. This webinar today will be about 30 minutes. I'm going to take 15 minutes to do an overview of the program and then 15 minutes to interview one of our current students, Kadry Furany. I'm joined today by my colleague, Robin Husledge, and Robin will be monitoring the chat and the questions. If you have questions, please feel free to type them into the Q&A section, and I will check that, and Robin will be checking that, and I'll answer questions as we go along. So feel free to put your questions into the Q&A section and we will get to them. So let me start by just giving a little background on the Carsey's academic programs. The Carsey School of Public Policy has programs in community development, public administration, and public policy. And although each program is distinct, there is some overlap, and there are instances where people from one program are in the classes of the other. But today I'm going to go through specifically the curriculum of the master's program in community development and talk about the requirements for that program, talk a little bit about the credits, talk a little bit about financial aid and costs, and then introduce Kadry Furany, a current student who can talk a little bit about his experience in the program as well. To start, the program uses an online cohort model. That means your courses for this year will be, when you start the program, will be all online. We'll have an introductory session and orientation beforehand, but you go through as a cohort, and that means you get to know the people who are in your cohort. The cohorts are generally around 20 people, and these are the people that you go through the whole program with and build relationships with, study in small groups, and people you get to know. And we feel that an important part of the graduate school's experience is making connections to your fellow students as well as to faculty and alumni. And so the program is designed to really take advantage of that cohort model. Within that, you'll take a range of courses, the capstone project, which I'll talk about in a minute, and a range of courses in management, finance, public policy, community economic development. The goal is to have a program that's really geared towards practitioners. And as you'll see, the students in the program are generally people who are practitioners across a wide range of disciplines. So we have people who are in the program who are involved in housing and community development finance and public health, micro-enterprise, a full range of people with practice. And again, one of the strengths is a very diverse program in age, from people in their mid-20s to people in their late 50s, people from all over the country and outside the United States, people from all racial and ethnic backgrounds. Makes it a really powerful experience. Talk a little bit first about the curriculum in the program. There are a set of core courses, which you can see on the screen there, that are really practical courses in policy analysis, organizational management, financial management. I teach the introductory course, which is called Integrative Approaches to Development. And that's a course where we actually ask you to think about your own theory of practice. What makes for successful community development and community economic development? What works? And this ties into the project that you'll develop in the program, the experiential learning. So you have a 4-course sequence, project sequence, which I'll go over in more detail in a minute, but you see the list there. So everybody carries out a project in your community, if you choose, often in your workplace itself. But in the curriculum, you can see there are the 5 core courses, the 4 project or experiential learning courses, and then a range of electives for you to choose from to make up the total number of courses, which is 12 required in the program. The capstone project is really the key element of the program. And as you can see, the project is a 4-course sequence. One is the introduction to the project. What is a project? How do you structure it? Looking at the logic model, which everyone uses. One of the questions we often get about the project is, do I have to have a project before I start the program? And the answer is no. And in fact, most people don't. Many people come in with an idea about what their project might be, but take that first term in the program to really figure out what it will be, work out the details, figure out whether it's something they want to do in their current workplace, or it's a topic they want to learn more about and a project they want to be connected with that's outside the workplace. Most people have ideas of what they'd like to do, but if you don't, we can help. If we know what your interests are, we can help you develop a project. We can even connect you to an organization where you might do your project. So this 4-course sequence goes throughout the 4 terms in the program, where you take courses then in design, implementation, and a project. In the project course, there are a range of skills that you learn in terms of collecting data, analyzing data, being engaged with the community, and actually designing the project. And as I mentioned, you'll, in the initial stages, develop a logic model, the roadmap for success and how projects are done. And again, when we talk to alumni, they often say that going through the project sequence has really been one of the most important parts of helping them figure out how to carry out projects that they do subsequently in their careers. This is the project evaluation course, again, that looks at outcomes and how do you measure outcomes as opposed to just outputs. Tries to get you to answer the question, how are people better off after they've participated in the project that you've designed? Let me stop for a minute. Robin, are there any questions that people have yet?
Hi, Michael. Let me look here. There is a question about the capstone project. Can you explain more about the capstone project, including the types of capstone projects students do, and whether you assign them, or do students have to sort of figure out what they want to do for their capstone?
Right. So again, as I mentioned, you don't need to have a project beforehand. And as I mentioned, many people do not. And so you'll often start with, what are your interests? What would you like to do? Or what is your organization doing now? Many people, their organization will give them ideas for projects, saying, we'd really like to do this. Why don't you do this for your project? So a project can be anything from designing a micro-enterprise program. We've had people do that. We've had people do evaluations of existing programs for their project. We've had people develop affordable housing plans for what they would carry out in their community. We've had people develop recreation programs as part of a community development initiative. We've had projects in public health related fields. So really they're pretty wide ranging. And the idea is for you to pick something that you're really interested in, that you want to focus on for a period of 14 months, and that the work that you do on the project is accompanied by this 4-course sequence, so that you actually do it in connection to what you're covering in the classroom. So again, it can be a partner, it can be an organization you pick, it can be your employer, and many people choose to go into an area where they want to focus more in their career, so it gives them an opportunity to really dive deep into an activity that will lead to future employment in that particular area.
Thanks, Michael. Another question is, can you list some examples of books you read in the course?
Yeah, good question. So typically, the courses don't have, most courses don't have specific books. They'll have a series of articles, and the articles can be anything from more formal journal articles to more likely practitioner-oriented pieces. In the public policy course and in the Introduction to Development course, we read a lot of case studies in addition to some articles around different theories of development. So generally, there are very few books that you have to buy because most of the reading is designed by the instructor and included online. Almost all the reading is available online. In the section, we use a platform called Canvas, and all the readings are posted within the modules where you have to read them. So the readings are quite varied, many case studies, some background and theory. The policy analysis courses actually look at specific policies. So the write-up may range from specific legislation to program initiatives at the state and local level. Pretty wide ranging of reading there.
Thanks, Michael. A follow-on question is about the project. Can it be a project I do independently, or do I need to be sponsored, or I assume with, connected to an organization?
Yeah, you can do it independently. Again, you'll go through the same process and develop the same logic model. It doesn't have to be associated with a particular organization, but it's typically associated with a particular community. So you'll outline the community that you would be working with or that you would be doing the project as part of, because that's an integral part of the project. But you can do it independently, and in fact, a number of people do carry out independent projects. So moving ahead, just a little bit about the schedule itself. You can develop a schedule that fits yours so that you can do the program in as little as 14 months. So start in June. We typically encourage people to start at the beginning of the cohort. The starting time that we encourage people is for this coming year, the summer. And then you can complete in 14 months, meaning you would finish the following August. So if you start in June of 2021, you would finish in August of 2022. However, if you want to take fewer courses in any given term, you can stretch that out. And typically what we've done is structure it so that you would take a sequence of required courses over the 14 months and then more of your elective courses later on. So there is flexibility to accommodate your schedule. And typically people finish in anywhere between 14 and 24 months. Although I should say that the majority of people who start the program do finish in 14 months. The application requirements, if you want to start this year in the June term, the application deadline is April 15th, although we encourage people to turn in your applications as soon as possible. We do applications on a rolling basis and until the cohort is filled. The requirements, as you can see on the screen, are a bachelor's degree, transcript, letters of reference, a personal statement in which you ask you to talk a little bit about your career goals and how the program would fit in, a resume, and an application fee. We do not require the GRE. TOEFL is required for applicants who are international applicants who did not previously study in English. If you did your bachelor's degree in English, you don't need to take the TOEFL exam. The cost of the program, you can see on the screen here, is $28,260 for New Hampshire residents, $31,140 for out-of-state residents. This is the tuition for the entire program. It's based on a fee per class, so you pay per course. If you take 2 courses in a term, you just pay for those 2. And this is the cost for the 12 courses total, regardless of when you take them. We do offer scholarships, including grant money. Many of our students get grant money. The awards range typically between $5,000 and $10,000. And we also have arrangements if you're affiliated with any of the organizations listed at the bottom here. Opportunity Finance Network, if you're a staff or board member, NeighborWorks, Local Initiative Support Corporation, Peace Corps, City Year. We have special scholarship funds specifically for those, but also scholarships for those who are not affiliated with any of these organizations. So we do have new need-based scholarships in addition to access to student loan programs to help you cover the cost of the program. Again, giving you a sense of the diversity of the program. We have projects that go on all around the world. We have students from all around the world. And again, the diversity of the student body and the experience of the student body is really one of the great benefits of the program and one of the real strengths of the program. You'll see in a minute as we talk to Kadry Furany, and he'll talk a little bit about his experience and his cohort. Here are a few of the recent graduates of the program, and you can see some of the work that they've done as well. Anything from housing organization in New Orleans, where Andrew Nika is the executive director, a nonprofit in Oregon, Tyler, a small consulting group that Abe works for, Community Impact Associates. So again, people work in affordable housing, finance, government agencies, NGOs, project managers, fundraising, policy analysis, a pretty wide range in the community development field. So let me stop there and just see if there are any questions before I introduce Kadry. Robin, are other questions we should address?
Yes. So someone is asking about, what about AmeriCorps, about that partnership program?
You would know more about that than I, Robin. Why don't you explain that?
I'm very happy to answer that. So AmeriCorps, we will, it's a one education award match. So if you have earned whatever that amount is that you've earned through your AmeriCorps service, we will match that up to one full education credit. So I think that's a little over $6,000. They have a max amount, so we would match exactly whatever you have earned for the AmeriCorps award. Another question is about, can you explain a little bit more about the difference between the 14-month and 24-month program?
Yeah, the only difference is you spread out the courses a little bit longer. So in the 14-month program, you're taking 2 courses per term across a series of terms that are generally 5 to 8 weeks long. So you can choose to take as little as 1 course per term after your first term in the program, where you might take 2 or 3. You'll see what the load is like, how much you can manage in terms of managing your other work activities, family responsibilities. And so you take the same courses, you just take them over a longer period of time. The cost is the same because you're paying per course rather than by term. So there are really very few differences there. I know one other point, actually, Robin, that frequently comes up is the courses themselves. And it's important to say that these courses are a mix of synchronous and asynchronous. So what this means is you meet online with the other members of the class, typically once every 2 weeks for about 90 minutes. And the rest of the course is asynchronous, meaning it's work that you do offline. That is, you're not together at the same time. You may organize, much of it will organize small groups. You'll do it with your small groups. You do it on your own time. So there is, each course has about a 90-minute meeting every 2 weeks or so. And then the other work is asynchronous. You do the work when you have time to do it or when you can arrange it with whatever small group you're part of. So it's a mixture of synchronous and asynchronous, but more of the time asynchronous. You do it on your own time.
Great, thank you. Another question, Michael, is how many students do you usually accept in each cohort?
Yeah, so each cohort is about 20 people. Sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less, but we keep it, we keep the cohorts small so that you actually get to know the people and get to know the instructors pretty well. And there's a lot of interaction. Instructors, you can meet easily with instructors offline, through Zoom, through phone calls. So there's a lot of accessibility to instructors, as well as work with other members of your cohort.
Thank you, Michael. That's all the questions I see for right now. So I think
Good.
we're ready
Well,
for Kadry.
Yeah, let me take this time to introduce Kadry Furany. And Kadry, welcome. It's good to see you.
Thank you so much.
As you saw in the introduction there, Kadry most recently worked with CARE Canada as the Vice President of Operations and has a long experience in community development before he came into the program. So, Kadry, let me start by asking you just to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the kinds of things you've done, and then I'll follow up by saying, but then why did you want to come into the program?
Thanks, Michael. Thank you.
A little bit about yourself, the kinds of things you've done, and then what interested you about the program.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's really an honor to be here. I mean, I was thinking as you were presenting. I mean, a year ago, I was sitting on the other side and listening to the great work and what the previous students said. And I hope I don't let you down today. My name is Kadry. I'm Egyptian Canadian. I'm currently based on Ottawa, which is the capital of Canada, not Toronto. Just to be clear, Ottawa is the capital of Canada. I was educated to work in the private sector. Actually, my first jobs were in construction and textile company and stuff like this. I worked as an internal auditor, head of production control, these kind of jobs that are suitable for people who studied accounting and business management. My journey with community development started back in 1993. And before you do the math, yes, I'm older than you think. Probably I belong to the category of older students that Michael was hinted about earlier. Back in the 80s, maybe early 90s, there was a belief in the world that microcredit is the silver bullet that will eliminate poverty from the face of the planet. After the success of Dr. Mohammed Musa in Bangladesh and Grameen Bank and all the stuff that you hear about. So NGOs hired people like me to establish and help people or train people to manage microfinance or microcredit. So basically, I was hired for 1 year to establish or to work with an NGO in rural Egypt, the poorer part of Egypt, to train or to establish 5 basically village banks, community managed basic village banks. I never looked back after this to work in the private sector. This was like the beginning, and I never looked back. My passion for humanitarian work and economic development and development in general took me to work in about 16 countries. I established, trained, enhanced, evaluated programs of varied types. I advanced in the ranks. 10 years ago, I was entrusted by the organization to become the vice president of CARE Canada. I was basically, I moved to Ottawa, and I was overseeing, or I was leading the operations of the organization worldwide. This is an average something in the horizon of $100 million a year of program money, like 150, 200 programs, depending on the year and what we are facing worldwide. And this is a mix of humanitarian response and development programs. So I dealt with health and women economic empowerment, like the kind of programs that you see international NGOs implement in what we call the developing world or the third world, which I don't like this word. Thank you so much.
So Kadry, people are listening to you saying, oh my gosh, he has so much experience. I don't have that. But as you know, in your cohort, we also have people who are 25 years old who maybe have just been working for a year or two. What's that like to be in a cohort where you have such a wide range? I mean, obviously you've been doing this for a long time. What's the value to you of pursuing a degree at this point? And what's it like being in a cohort that's such a diverse cohort?
Okay. I mean, I have, maybe I failed to mention, this is my second master's degree. Like about 10 years ago, I had my first master's degree, which was in community economic development. And my experience was totally focused on, like, all my work was international development, international work in what we call developing countries. I didn't really work in the developed world before, like in terms of not presence, in terms of doing community development. A couple of years ago, I was like thinking about the next chapter of my career and what I'm missing. I lived in North America and experienced, and I've seen inequalities and needs. All of you have seen this probably if you live in this part of the world. Felt strongly that it's time for me to engage in development in this side of the world, apply skills and knowledge that I gained elsewhere. How I landed in this program, I mean, I got email just like many of you, and I attended a webinar just like this, and I found this program really introduces a good balance of global international development issues and the challenges, and at the same time, it talks about North America and the issues that this side of the world is facing, like the housing, for example, the social housing that you just mentioned, Michael. The balance of classes, instructions, and whatever, and the cohort exchange interaction was quite fantastic. The class material is very diverse. We are not stuck to books, as you mentioned, Michael. Like the array or the selection of pieces that we read are so inspiring, and the diverse experienced students, and as you mentioned, Michael, we sit in class with people who are much younger than, or I sat in groups with people who are much younger than me, and actually it's refreshing to hear their views. It's refreshing to try to keep up with them, and I really, I mean, I can't stress enough the value of the exchanges in the group discussions and I would say the varied views that comes from people who are from completely different backgrounds and different generation, I would say. I found it to be enriching, not a challenge. It feels refreshing, actually, to be in this. And frankly, I mean, if I'm going to sit in class with a bunch of older people, like over 50, I mean, I'm hearing this all the time in my job. I mean, the value is to get outside of this bubble and learn from people who are different.
Of course,
I'm not sure if I answered your question. Thanks.
Right. Well, of course, all the younger people in the program say what great value it is to be in courses with you, and some of the people who have had a number of years of experience as well. So I think it really is that mixture that creates such a dynamic program and classroom. Kadry, you have had a job that's had a lot of responsibilities, and I know you have other responsibilities. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what the challenges of the program have been, whether it's been in, how do you balance all those different things? Sort of what have you learned that's helped you? Obviously, you're doing very well in the program. What strategies you have to develop as people here are thinking about, how am I going to do this? What are the challenges they might face, and what are some of the things you've done to address those challenges?
Yeah, I think it's mixture of things. I think the design of the program itself, and you mentioned some of this, Michael, the flexibility in what classes are you taking, what speed are you embarking on is so important. I mean, I don't think I would have done it if the program is rigid. Now, I mean, before I elaborate on this, I have to say, I mean, personal challenges exist, and I think it will vary from person to person. My challenges would, again, I sat in class 10 years ago. I didn't read books or material the way like rich material that like the one that was introduced in the classes. I was doing work. So like going back to classwork and doing homework and stuff, obviously it's an adjustment. 10 years ago, I was much younger. I mean, I was much faster, perhaps, and you need really to test yourself and challenge yourself. And this is the value I wanted to challenge myself, and I wanted to push my brain to think differently, or to get out of the bubble. There is no one size fits all for this. I think someone like me need to accept that there is a challenge and push the agenda, push the envelope. The program allows for also flexibility, as you mentioned, that like you can take classes, you can select the classes that suits your time and your abilities. And I have to mention as well that there is great level of understanding among the professors and appreciation of the students' background. So when you approach a professor with a question or a requirement or something, I received really positive responses whenever I needed some support, or whenever I needed more time, or whenever I needed to do something differently. And this is the value of a program like this, I would say.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I answered your question, though.
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Let me ask you this. This program is currently entirely online, and for many people, it's the first time that they've, everybody's taken done a Zoom session or done, some work online. But for most people, this will be the first time that they've actually taken a degree program online. I wonder if you could talk about how that's worked and the aspects of an online program that people might want to be aware of as they approach something that they may not have done before.
Yeah, absolutely. I am on the same boat. I mean, lockdowns all the time since the program started. Education without face-to-face interaction is a new thing for me. It's a new thing for almost half the world, all the world. Relying on the technology 100% in education isn't the norm, or wasn't the norm. And frankly, Michael, I don't think the program was originally designed to be this way. I like our experience in the first term and now is very different. We are learning, all of us. The way I see it really now, I've been through this for almost a year. It is a challenge in the beginning, but it is really fantastic opportunity. We adjusted to the learning online. And I can mention like maybe few beautiful or outcome or say values of this online, like recording lectures. I mean, this wasn't conceivable in the past. I mean, we get the lectures recorded and you can watch it afterwards. Or if you miss class for any reason, hopefully you wouldn't, you can see the lecture, or you can play the contents when you have time. Even the meetings of the professors were recorded and uploaded. The flexibility of attending from everywhere, from anywhere. There is, I would say, some professors really advanced in like recording the lecture before the class. So we listen to the recording before the class. Obviously, this is, when I say recording, this video. And we use the class time productively in questions and answers and what needs to be clarified and pushing the envelope even further. We use this time for the interaction between students and reflecting on their experience based on what they hear. So the lecture model changed. Now you get it online and then you see it, and then sometimes we do assignments before we attend the class. So technology, I would say, opened really a big domain of opportunities that I think we utilized quite well, but I believe, we need to push the envelope even further. Still, I miss the face-to-face. I miss the coffee chat. I miss the having lunch with my cohort members. I miss more time with the group. We use WhatsApp sometimes. We use Teams. We have our own, oh my God, can someone help me with this? And we help each other. So, again, there are mitigation strategies. But I would say if I wait, based on my experience and my limited time and everything, I think I wouldn't have done it without the technology, without the online aspects that we are really harnessing right now.
Yeah, thanks. So we've reached about our time. Before we sign off, Robin, are there any other questions, or do people have questions they want to ask of Kadry?
I think Kadry has done an amazing job in answering and intuiting what questions people have. So I don't have any outstanding questions here from our attendees. So thank you so much, Kadry.
Thank you.
Yeah, Kadry, thank you very much for doing this. Really appreciate it. And again, really appreciate your very comprehensive and insightful response. So thanks for that. Well, I'd like to thank everyone who's joined us today. And again, say if you have questions, you can follow up via email with either myself or with Robin. And here's our information. If you have general questions, want to talk to me or Sanjeev, who works in admissions, feel free to contact any one of us here. And thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it.